So you want to hear the story of old Winter Park High School? Well, it happened a long time ago. We know it was long ago because lots of old geezers like me claim they went to Winter Park High School. But before the high school, there was Winter Park. Way back in 1824, a place called Mosquito County was formed in the central part of Florida. They would later call it Orange County. About that time, a man by the name of Coacoochee lived in the area that we now know as Winter Park. He was a great Seminole warrior, second only to his friend Osceola. Coacoochee in Seminole means wildcat. Well, old Wildcat impressed many people, including newspaper editors who published his eloquent letters, which pleaded for fair treatment. Well, he didn't get it. Wildcat was captured, escaped, and finally exiled to Oklahoma. Well, in 1850, a town by the name of Jernigan was formed a few miles south of Wildcat's home. A year or so later, it was to be called Orlando. In 1858, old David Mizell settled north of Orlando near a lake that now bears his name. He helped put together a town there, which he named Lakeview. After the Civil War in the 1870s, a Bishop Whipple and a Mr. Schwope purchased lots of land in the Maitland-Winter Park area and set out some of the very first orange groves. Joining them was John Eaton, the first mayor of Maitland and also a man who helped form Eatonville. Bishop Whipple's Church of the Good Shepherd stands there today. It was a wild, dangerous place in the 1870s. David Mizell's son, David Jr., was Orange County's first sheriff. He was ambushed and killed. The population of the Orlando area was only about 7,000 in 1872. In that year, 41 people were killed, and only about 10 cases went to trial. A few settlers began to head to the wild wilderness of the little town of Lakeview, with names like Richmond, Ward, Chubb, Phelps, Stoughton, Rogers, Thayer, Comstock. Old Captain John Coyner started Florida's first sawmill on the site where Rollins College now stands. In 1881, a fellow in Chicago by the name of Chase was told by his doctor to go to Florida for his health. Once here, he loved the place, and so he called his friend Chapman. Together, they bought most of the land between Lakes Maitland, Virginia, Killarney, Osceola for just a few $1,000s. They planned a town. In the center of it was to be a 10-acre park with a railroad running right through the middle. Forever, it was to have a park. The four lakes were to be connected by two streets. One was called Boulevard, which later became Park Avenue, and the other, Interlochen. Well, they advertised by saying it was to be a first-class place for northern and southern men of wealth. So it was a park for classy people to visit in the winter. Thus, the name Winter Park. Fred Lyman bought the first two lots. Others were bought by Charlie Morse, Frank Fairbanks, and Bill Comstock. They had a party when the first building went up. It was a train depot for $1,000. Old Captain Coyner dug a canal between Lakes Osceola and Virginia to run his logs through. Winter Park was pretty much surrounded by swamps and lots of hooting owls, alligators, panthers, and many of the people talked about all the wildcats. People would be talking about wildcats well into the future. In 1883, the first telegraph was set up in Winter Park, and the first message was sent to the President of the United States. In 84, the Congregational Church decided they wanted to put a college somewhere in Florida. Several towns wanted it, but Winter Park won out. They collected money to get started, and a Winter Parker by the name of A.W. Rollins gave the most. The school opened a year later under the name Rollins College. A 1903 Winter Park ordinance read a fine of $25 or imprisonment for not more than 25 days of hard labor or both for any person found guilty of playing games on Sunday. Another said people could not run an auto or any motor vehicle over 8 miles an hour within the city of Winter Park. Names in the news that year were Kiesel, Green, Kale, Deming, Chubb, Comstock, Ward, Hinkle, Hotard, Strong, Collado, Trevelyan, Osteen, and Overstreet. In 1913, Carl Galloway installed his first telephone exchange at Maitland with 10 lines. The first instrument was installed in Dr. Trevelyan's home. In 1915, a man noticed some unusual fruit on one of his trees along a Winter Park driveway. W.C. Temple showed it to a nursery, and they padlocked a fence around it. They budded thousands of trees from what became known as the Temple Orange. They called it the orange tree that made Winter Park famous. Well, 1917, you had Winter Park. It opened its new grade in high school on the corner of Park and Lyman Avenues. There were 11 grades, 8 teachers, and 150 students. It was announced that a 12th grade would be added if the students wanted one. How dumb could they be? A couple of years later, about 25 students of the 11th and 12th grades had to go to class over at Rollins because of lack of equipment at the public school. But they took care of that, and in 1923, an altogether new senior high school was dedicated by Ed Kiesel over at Huntington Avenue. In 1935, the high school had 350 students, and they built an auditorium. In 38, they received the highest rating in the state for a high school. And in 39, they published their first yearbook. Well, in 1940, the high school got a new gymnasium and lights for its football field. Then there were the fabulous 50s, the sensational 60s, and in the 1970s, Winter Park High School found itself in a wonderful big building over on Summerfield Avenue in Winter Park. Today, Winter Park High School has some of the finest facilities around. Showalter Field, longtime home of the Wildcats, was recently renovated and named after the legendary Hall of Fame coach who built a football dynasty at Winter Park, Larry Gurgley. And, of course, it is also the home of the Bob Mosier track. Winter Park's athletic accomplishments over these past 3 decades has been astonishing, winning the State Athletic Program of the Year 14 times. In 1995, the U.S. Track Coach of the Year, our own Bob Mosier, started the Winter Park High School Sports Hall of Fame. Over all these years, our greatest athletes have been honored each year at a prestigious banquet in Winter Park. Out old Winter Park? Well, the more things change, the more they stay the same. That's nice to say, but I have no idea what it means. Lots of us have no idea how Winter Park remains such a special place. Park Avenue is still the envy of every town in America. And Central Park is still there, and so is this train station. There is a new city hall and a police station over on Canton Avenue. And folks flock here to just savor the quaintness, the charm, and the elegance. Those northern people of wealth for whom the city was built have long gone. But their class and distinction seems to carry over the streets of historic Winter Park. And Winter Park High School has also remained so distinctive. One of the top award-winning schools in the entire nation. There has never been a greater sports program in the country. Today, there are more sports at Winter Park High than ever before. But the sports programs would never have been what they were without the challenges offered by the stars of the past. And there were many. While they were our heroes from the past, they also became our models for the future, the best of the best.